Some women fight to be heard. Others never had that luxury. That morning on The View, no one expected a confrontation. They expected inspiration. What they got instead was silence sharp enough to cut glass. The studio lights of The View were warmer than usual, casting a soft glow across the table. Outside the windows behind them, a muted winter landscape stretched into the distance. Bare trees, pale skies, calm. Inside, everything looked composed, almost too composed. Sharon Stone sat upright, shoulders relaxed, hands folded lightly around her mug. She wore a deep olive dress, understated yet elegant, the kind of outfit chosen by someone who didn't need to announce her presence. Her eyes moved slowly as she listened, absorbing the room rather than claiming it. Across from her, Meghan Markle leaned slightly forward. Her posture was alert, engaged, controlled. Every gesture was measured, every nod intentional. When she spoke with confidence, with the practiced cadence of someone who knew how to hold an audience. At first, everything flowed as expected. Joy asked Sharon about longevity in Hollywood. Whoopi framed it as resilience. The audience murmured appreciatively as Sharon spoke, not dramatically, not emotionally, but with quiet gravity. "I stayed," Sharon said calmly, "even when it hurt, especially when it hurt." Meghan smiled politely, too politely. When it was her turn, she took a breath that felt rehearsed, not fake, but prepared. "For me," Meghan began, "survival meant refusing to be silent, refusing to accept the narrative written about me." Heads nodded, cameras tightened in. Sharon listened without interrupting. Her face didn't change, but her eyes sharpened slightly, not in challenge, but in recognition. Meghan continued, her voice growing firmer. "There's power in telling your story loudly, in owning it before someone else does." That was the first moment the air shifted. Sharon didn't respond immediately. She took a sip of water, set the glass down, then spoke, not louder, not faster. "There's also power," she said, "in enduring without applause." The table went quiet, not tense, not yet. Just still. Meghan's smile froze for half a second, barely noticeable unless you were watching closely. She tilted her head. "Of course," she replied smoothly. "But silence hasn't always protected women like us, has it?" The word "us" landed heavily. Sharon met her gaze for the first time directly, not confrontational, assessing. "No," Sharon said, "but neither has performance." Joy shifted in her seat. Whoopi raised an eyebrow. Meghan laughed softly. One of those laughs meant to disarm, but it didn't quite land. "I'm not sure I see storytelling as performance," she said. "I see it as survival." Sharon didn't argue. She waited. That pause, just 2 seconds, felt longer than any speech. When she finally spoke, her voice was even, almost gentle. "Survival," she said, "is what you do when there are no cameras." A ripple moved through the audience. No gasps, no claps, just a collective inhale. Meghan straightened slightly. Her hands came together, fingers interlacing tighter than before. "With respect," she said, "not all suffering happens off-screen." Sharon nodded once. "True," she replied, "but not all strength needs to be seen." The hosts exchanged looks now. This wasn't a debate. It wasn't an argument. It was something more dangerous, a comparison no one had spoken out loud. But both women felt pressing against the table between them. Meghan's voice softened, but the edge was there now. "I think minimizing someone's voice because it's public can be its own kind of dismissal." Sharon didn't flinch. "And I think," she said quietly, "that confusing visibility with depth is how pain becomes currency." Silence. Real silence. The cameras lingered on Meghan's face as she absorbed that sentence. For the first time, she didn't respond immediately. Her eyes flicked away, just for a heartbeat, then back. She smiled again. But this time, it didn't reach her eyes. The silence didn't break on its own. A producer's voice whispered something through an earpiece. One of the hosts cleared her throat. The show was supposed to move on, to a lighter question, a safer lane, but something had already shifted. The table no longer felt like a platform. It felt like a line drawn down the middle. Meghan spoke first. She leaned back this time, crossing one leg over the other, reclaiming composure the way she always did. By control. Her tone softened, but there was steel underneath it now. "I think it's interesting," she said, "how often women are praised for endurance after the fact. Silence becomes noble once it's survivable." A few audience members murmured in agreement. Sharon didn't look away. She didn't interrupt. She waited until Meghan finished, then tilted her head slightly, an old habit, one she'd picked up long before interviews became negotiations. "Endurance isn't noble," Sharon replied. "It's necessary, and necessity doesn't care who's watching." Meghan smiled again. This one was sharper. "But visibility changes systems," she said. "It opens doors." Sharon nodded once. "It also creates stages," she said, "and stages invite expectations." Joy shifted, sensing the friction now. Whoopi tried to lighten the moment with a half-joke, but neither woman took it. Meghan turned slightly toward the hosts, widening the circle, making it public. "I didn't choose to be visible," she said. "Visibility came with the consequences I faced." Sharon's response was immediate, not reactive. Immediate. "None of us choose the consequences," she said. "We choose what we do with them." That landed harder than anything before. Meghan's fingers tightened around her mug. She set it down carefully, precisely aligned with the coaster, as if keeping order in small things could steady the larger ones. "I spoke because staying quiet nearly broke me," Meghan said, her voice firmer now, "and I won't apologize for that." No one had asked her to. Sharon's expression softened, but only slightly. Her voice dropped, not in volume, but in temperature. "I'm not asking for an apology," she said. "I'm asking for honesty." The word hung there. Honesty. Meghan blinked once. Just once. "About what?" she asked. Sharon didn't raise her voice. She didn't gesture. She didn't perform. "About the difference," she said, "between telling your story and reshaping it." The audience inhaled. A camera operator adjusted focus. Somewhere off screen, a producer mouthed, "Wrap it up." Meghan laughed, short, incredulous. "Are you suggesting I fabricated my experiences?" Sharon held her gaze. "I'm suggesting," she said slowly, "that memory is powerful, and power edits." The temperature in the studio dropped. Meghan straightened fully now, shoulders back, chin lifted. This wasn't conversation anymore. This was defense. "I lived it," she said. "I don't need permission to speak it." Sharon nodded again. "No," she agreed, "but when your story becomes a brand, it stops being just yours." That was it. The hosts froze. Joy opened her mouth, then closed it. Whoopi leaned back, arms crossed. Meghan's voice sharpened. "That's unfair," she said. "You don't get to define my motives." Sharon finally leaned forward, just slightly. "And you don't get to pretend motives don't matter." A beat, then another. Meghan exhaled through her nose, the composure cracking at the edges. "I find it interesting," she said, "that women who endured quietly are often celebrated, while women who speak are questioned." Sharon didn't hesitate. "I question everyone who profits from pain," she said, "including myself." That stopped Meghan cold. For the first time, she didn't have a response ready. The audience shifted, sensing it too, that rare moment when the rhythm breaks, when the practiced cadence falters. Meghan glanced toward the hosts, then back to Sharon. "This is becoming personal," she said. Sharon's voice was calm, almost kind. "It always was." Another producer's voice crackled in an earpiece. A hand motioned commercial. The hosts tried to steer, but Meghan shook her head. "No," she said. "Let's finish this." The room held its breath. Sharon didn't interrupt. She waited. And in that waiting, the balance tipped. The producers never liked it when a segment stopped behaving. On The View, everything had a rhythm, a laugh line, a warm anecdote, a respectful pivot. Even arguments were supposed to be manageable, sharp enough to trend, soft enough to survive a commercial break. But this wasn't manageable anymore. The lights felt brighter. The studio air felt thinner. The audience, usually trained to clap on cue, was now listening like witnesses. Whoopi glanced toward the camera, as if asking it to blink first. "Okay," she said carefully, voice calm but guarded. Let's keep it respectful." Meghan nodded as if she agreed, but her eyes stayed locked on Sharon. Sharon's posture hadn't changed. She wasn't leaning in to win. She was sitting like someone who'd already decided she didn't need to. Meghan spoke with a practiced steadiness. "People always want to reduce women to how they handled it," she said. as if survival isn't enough, as if speaking isn't enough. Sharon's expression didn't shift, but her voice softened, just enough to sound almost sympathetic. Survival is enough, Sharon said. Speaking is enough, but speaking doesn't erase responsibility. Meghan's smile returned, smaller now, controlled. She tapped her fingertips lightly on the table, like she was counting time. Responsibility, she repeated. For what, exactly? Joy tried to jump in, offering a lifeline. I think Sharon's just saying... Meghan raised one hand without looking away. No, let her say it, she said. I want to understand. Sharon nodded once, as if she appreciated the permission, even though she didn't need it. Responsibility, Sharon said, for what you set in motion. That landed in the space between them, like a stone dropped into still water. Meghan leaned back, crossing her arms now, subtle, defensive, unmistakable. You're implying my words have harmed people. Sharon didn't blink. Words can, she said, and when your words become headlines, they can do it faster. Meghan's jaw tightened. My words were my truth. Sharon's tone stayed level. Truth doesn't mean complete, she said. It means believed. The audience shifted again, some murmurs, some silence. A few claps died before they started, like hands forgot what side they were on. Meghan's eyes flashed. Are you accusing me of manipulating people? She asked, voice sharper. Because I spoke about my life? Sharon shook her head slowly. I'm saying, she replied, that when your life becomes a narrative, you start editing yourself into the hero. Meghan's mouth opened, then closed. She inhaled slowly, like she was pulling restraint back into her body. Whoopi tried again. Okay, we're... Sharon's gaze didn't leave Meghan. We all do it, Sharon added, but most of us don't do it on a global stage. Meghan laughed. This time, it sounded like disbelief, not amusement. Interesting, she said. So, you're the authority on global stages now? Sharon didn't take the bait. I'm the authority, she said, on what happens when the applause fades. That line didn't sound like an insult. It sounded like a warning. Meghan's fingers tightened around her mug again. She didn't lift it. She just held it, as if the weight grounded her. I didn't come here to be interrogated, she said, voice cool but trembling at the edges. Sharon's response was quiet. Then you shouldn't have come to a table built on questions. Meghan's eyes narrowed. Questions are one thing, she said. Judgment is another. Sharon nodded, still calm. Judgment comes when answers don't match the framing, she said. Meghan's composure cracked, just a hairline fracture. It showed in the way she blinked too quickly, the way her breath clipped at the end. You keep saying framing like I manufactured my pain, Meghan said. Do you have any idea what it took to stand up after everything? Sharon paused. Then, finally, she looked down for a second, as if choosing her next words carefully. When she looked back up, her voice had changed. Not louder, sharper. I know what it takes, she said, and I also know what it looks like when someone uses pain like currency. The studio went cold. Meghan stared at her, stunned, like she'd been slapped by a sentence. How dare you, Meghan whispered. Joy's face tightened. Whoopi's shoulders rose. The host knew it. That was the line. That was the moment the segment stopped being television and became something riskier. Sharon didn't flinch. I'm not saying you didn't hurt, she said. I'm saying you learned how to spend it. Meghan's voice rose now, still controlled, but no longer smooth. You don't get to measure my trauma, she said. You don't get to decide what I'm allowed to do with it. Sharon's eyes held steady. No, she said, but I can ask one thing. Meghan's breath hitched. What? She snapped. Sharon leaned forward for the first time, just slightly, like a door opening. When the cameras are off, she asked, who are you without the story? Meghan froze, not because she didn't understand, because she did. For a second, the entire studio watched her search for a response that wasn't scripted, a response that wasn't polished, a response that didn't have a headline built into it. Her lips parted. Then, she heard something in her earpiece, a producer's frantic whisper, commercial, now. But Meghan didn't move. She looked at Sharon like she was deciding whether to answer or explode. And Sharon didn't blink because she knew what she'd just done. She'd asked a question Meghan couldn't spin. No one remembered the last time The View went silent like this. Not the polite silence before applause. Not the awkward silence after a joke that didn't land. This was something else. This was the sound of a studio realizing it had lost control. Meghan's hand was still wrapped around the mug, knuckles pale now. The producer's voices buzzed urgently in her ear. Commercial, we're going to break. But she didn't blink, didn't nod, didn't acknowledge them. Across from her, Sharon Stone hadn't moved. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't gloating. She looked almost tired. Meghan finally spoke, her voice lower than before, stripped of polish. "You don't know who I am when the cameras are off." Sharon didn't rush her. "That's true," she said, "but I know who people become when the cameras are on." That was it. Something snapped, not loudly, not dramatically. It cracked quietly, the way ice gives way under a single confident step. Meghan set the mug down too hard. Coffee sloshed over the rim, staining the glossy table. "This is exactly what I'm talking about," she said, voice shaking now. "Women tearing other women down for entertainment." Whoopi leaned forward, hands raised. Okay, let's pause." Meghan cut her off. "No," she said sharply. "I've paused my whole life." The audience gasped. Somewhere in the back, a producer mouthed cut, slicing the air with a hand signal that meant we're bleeding out. Joy tried once more, softer this time. "Meghan, nobody's attacking you." Meghan laughed, bitter and short. "You invited me here," she said, sweeping her gaze across the table. "And let me be cross-examined like I owe the world an explanation." Sharon finally shifted in her seat. Not defensive, not aggressive, just present. "No one owes the world," Sharon said. "But if you build a platform on confession, don't be surprised when people listen closely." Meghan stood. The movement was sudden enough to startle the audience. Chairs creaked. A cameraman hesitated, unsure whether to stay wide or follow her. "I won't sit here," Meghan said, voice rising, "and be told my life is a performance." Sharon remained seated. "Then don't perform it," she replied. That line hit harder than anything else that day. Meghan stared at her, eyes glassy now, not crying, not calm. Something in between, something unguarded. "You think this is easy?" Meghan asked. "You think living under scrutiny doesn't change you?" Sharon's answer was quiet. "I think it does," she said. "And I think some people learn to live without it, and some learn to live from it." The studio felt like it might tip over. Whoopi stood now too, desperate to regain the room. "All right, we're going to take a break." But Meghan was already stepping away from the table. "No," she said. "I'm done." She turned toward the audience, toward the cameras, toward millions of unseen faces. "This is exactly why people stop telling the truth," she said, "because the moment you do, someone decides they know you better than you know yourself." Sharon watched her, not with anger, not with triumph, with something closer to resignation. "Or," Sharon said softly, "because the truth doesn't always like the mirror." Meghan froze for half a second. Then she walked. The microphone pack tugged at her blazer as a producer rushed forward, whispering urgently. The camera followed her instinctively. Too instinctively, catching the moment she reached the edge of the set. She stopped there, turned back, her voice trembled, but she didn't hide it. "You want to know who I am without the story?" she said. "You'll never know, because you don't deserve access to it." And with that, she stepped off the stage. The studio doors closed behind her with a dull, final thud. Silence. Real silence. The kind that doesn't ask to be filled. Whoopi exhaled slowly, rubbing her temples. Joy stared at the table. Sunny looked straight ahead, lips pressed together. And Sharon Stone, still seated, still calm, looked toward the empty chair Meghan had left behind. "I hope she finds peace," Sharon said quietly. "Off camera." The director finally found his voice. Cut to commercial. The screen faded to black. Clips hit social media before the episode even finished airing. Sharon Stone destroys Meghan Markle live. Meghan Markle walks off The View. That question no one expected. Comment sections exploded. Some defended Meghan fiercely. Some praised Sharon's composure. Most just replayed the moment over and over. The pause, the stare, the question that stopped everything. And somewhere, in a quiet car leaving the studio, Meghan stared out the window, replaying a single sentence she couldn't outrun. "Who are you?" without the story. If this moment shocked you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the stories that make people walk away are usually the ones worth watching all the way through.